In the farthest reaches of the Pacificus, there is a lab, built on what used to be an oil drilling platform. Exclusion Site 10, the Deep Pacificus Center, aka XDTPC-X. Here, a rather dark cell of rogue scientists don't just observe the sea life, they experiment, and they create sea life. Scientists who consider the Mad Scientist Union as too restrictive topple this oil rig, even though there is no oil to find, they still drill and dig deep into the ocean floor. Kilometers deep into the ocean, the drill dug deeper and deeper into the seafloor. Kilometers further under the seafloor, scientists discovered ruins. Strange ruins of a civilization that had soaring columns built at curved angles, with porous roofs and doors made from shells. As the scientists studied these strange buildings through their probes and drones, they discovered that this eerie city, named Abyss by the scientists, had architecture not made of stone, wood, or metal. Instead, they realized that Abyss was carved out of the bones of an impossibly titanic creature, a creature that they wanted to study closer. One of the hardest parts about studying anything on the bottom of the seafloor is all of it has to be done from a distance. Deep sea divers have to be carefully trained. The deeper you go, the more you need to breathe, and the denser the air gets, so it grows harder and harder to breathe. Just a few meters below the surface means you have to breathe 8 times as much. One of the hardest tests a diver has to do: dive to depth and be able to write their own name on a board underwater. Many divers who spend years open water diving or snorkeling fail this test. Even the strongest psychologically can break within mere minutes of a deep dive. As you get deeper, the oxygen can become toxic as you feel euphoric and happy. You stop caring about proper procedure. You get distracted by little visions in your eyes. Gases in your bone and tissue compress to great lengths. You may see mermaids that aren't there. You may see yourself as a mermaid, and your confidence will be higher than you could ever know as possible. And confident mermaids don't need hoses and scuba to breathe. And that is without the physical risk. If you ascend too quickly, the bubbles in your blood, bones, and tissue expand too quickly and affect you badly. And if you do have the bends, you better hope the bubbles in your body are in a place that isn't too bad. If the bubbles are in your skin, you'll develop a rash. You'll itch like an army of ants are scraping and scavenging under your skin, and you will swell like a balloon as the bubbles expand in your skin. Now, if these bubbles are in your throat, in your blood, in your muscles, or in your brain, have you ever shaken a can of soda? Shaken a bottle of champagne? Taken a bottle of strawberry soda and poured it into a gelatin mold? Then you may have a good idea what will happen when the bubbles expand in your throat, blood, muscles, and brain. The worst part? You may not even have symptoms for hours or even days after you ascend. So you may think you're fine, only to fall unconscious hours or days later. Modern divers have technologies that can help. Decompression stops, decompression chambers, and practice all help. But there is a reason deep sea diving is a rare thing. The rate of death is high, and you can go on a dive 9 times with no problem, and on the 10th dive your mind may just betray you. You may find it a good idea to just take your helmet off underwater. Some divers decide to use an atmospheric diving suit to help them go deeper. Their suits act as a submersible that preserve them from the sea and protect them from most issues from the sea. The downside to all of this, the techniques and technology of the most advanced divers, it wasn't enough to reach the depths of the abyss. The abyss was so deep below the seafloor that it was measured in kilometers, not meters. The seafloor was so far below the surface that distance was also measured in kilometers. The problem with bends begins at a mere 5 meters below the surface, less depth than the big tank at the aquarium. At these depths, if a human being attempted to step out into the water, if you have ever seen a cola can crushed by a train, then you may approach a tenth of how badly the human body would be crushed by the sea. And it was these struggles the scientists had to deal with. The human body wasn't built for these depths, and the submarines they could send to these depths weren't able to study the delicate structures and artifacts. So the scientists came up with a solution. If the human body couldn't survive, they could make a non-human body. They took DNA from many different deep-sea creatures and DNA from the bones from the abyss. They attempted to create a creature that was able to survive the pressure and cold at the bottom of the ocean, while also being intelligent enough to listen to the scientists of DPC. It took many, many attempts to create the perfect creature. The creatures created from the mixtures were either too wild to be tamed, or they were too intelligent to obey the scientists. By their 222nd attempt, they succeeded. By fertilizing the eggs of an anglerfish directly with DNA from the deep one's bones. From this experiment was born the creature known to the scientists as the Brinefang. A nearly 3 meters tall with green blue skin, sharp teeth, and eyes that never blink, and massive axolotl-like gills on the side of her head that allowed her to breathe underwater or on land. She adapted quickly, and she grew quickly as well, growing to her full height in less than a year, and intelligent enough to follow directions in mere months. She was considered a far greater success than her many siblings. Out of the 1,000 hatched eggs, only 4 were female, and Brinefang ate her 3 sisters minutes after hatching, and of her 996 brothers, most of them died within months of hatching, and scientists could not figure out why, until they decided to release Brinefang with her remaining brothers. Her brothers, who were a tenth of her size and who bite her skin, and slowly digested their way into her skin and merging with her, similar to parasites, or what anglerfish males did to attach to their mate. Now with her brothers attached, she soon finished growing, and the scientists released the Brinefang into the abyss with the intent of pulling back one of the many artifacts, pottery, within the abyss. Brinefang, inside of the sunken city, she could see it in a way that her creators could not. She could see that the abyss wasn't just once a city. It was a titanic creature of truly gargantuan scale. The multi-headed serpent that was hundreds of miles long, the last of her kind, a leviathan so large that she created tsunamis with her movements, and she shook the earth when she dug into the sea floor. The Leviathan was once the name of this creature, and when Leviathan lived, Brinefang's ancestors lived on the Leviathan scales, much like how her brothers lived on her flesh. When Leviathan was killed by a power greater than even her, he fell, plunged into the darkest depths of the deepest waters, where her flesh fed back into the ecosystem, and where Brinefang's ancestors enjoyed their golden age. They could build greater structures, they could eat endlessly, and they could take whatever they want from the Leviathan. However, after countless centuries, her flesh rotted, and the Deep Ones realized that there was no more food for them there. It was a time of darkness, a time of war. By the end of that war, The last of the Deep Ones were given a choice. They could leave and live, or stay and die. Many chose to leave, many more chose to stay. And down in the dark depths, surrounded by the carvings that told these tales, Brinefang saw she had her own choice now, a different one than what was given to her Deep One ancestors. She could leave the abyss and forever remain a tool of the scientists who created her, a grave robber and desecrator of her ancestors' tombs, or she could remain, and with the help of her many brothers all living inside of her, she could be both the goddess and mother to a brand new kingdom of Deep Ones, the kingdom of Brinefang. In the dark, surrounded by the words carved by her ancestors, Brinefang made her choice. In the months that followed Brinefang's descent into Abyss, the scientists decided that she was a lost cause, and they engineered more eggs similar to Experiment 222. More Brinefangs that could descend into the Abyss safely. When those eggs were close to hatching, beneath a dark new moon sky, Brinefang's children raided the oil rig. These massive humanoid anglerfish hybrids were surprisingly effective at climbing the columns of the oil rig, strong enough to break down the most secure doors with their bare hands, and teeth sharp enough to pierce bone in a single bite. Hundreds of Brinefang's daughters invaded DPC. Despite the slaughter of every human they saw, they only had one goal. The eggs, created by the scientists, they would be vital in ensuring that the Brinefangs endured. When news struck the lab of the invasion, the few remaining scientists left, and the Brinefangs took the eggs down to the abyss, where they would be raised by Mother Brinefang, first Brinefang of them all. After the scientists declared DPC an exclusion zone, a place they would not be able to return because the ceramicists took over the lab, it was not the first time this had happened, and it would not be the last. After many years with the oil rig quiet, the scientists sent a squadron of mercenaries into the rig. There was only one radio message that explained what happened. On the radio, a gurgling voice called out to the scientists, and even though it was a short message, it was enough to convince the scientists to never return to Exclusion Site 10, and enough for them to know that the mercenaries were all dead. This place isn't your place. Not anymore. Your creations have overtaken you. I have my kingdom here now. Leave me be here, and I will leave you be there. But if you invade my kingdom, I will invade yours. My children are many, and their children are many more. We are immortal unless we are slain. We are strong. We are wise. We are many. You are mortal. You are weak. You may be wise, but you are few. This kingdom is Brinefang, and we will all kill to protect it. The voice on the radio said, an impossibility since Brinefang was never supposed to be able to speak, but here she was, speaking to the scientists on the radio. So they agreed. DPC would remain an exclusion zone, at least for now.